sustainability is not the same thing as stability. And the question is whether or not we have the ability to work with those changes and respond to those changes.
You think about what's sustainable at one level might not be sustainable at another level.
Everybody's trying to grab the sustainable cape, put on the mantle, be super sustainable.
We're all in it together, and we should think of ways to help each other as well as help the environment.
I'm currently in the Edwards School of Business, and most of my work, I think, falls into human resources and organizational behavior.
David Natcher, I'm a professor in the Department of Agriculture and Resource Economics.
Patricia Farnese, and I'm a professor here in the College of Law.
Okay, well, I'm Michael Gertler. I work in the Department of Sociology.
My name is Wanda Martin. I'm an assistant professor at the College of Nursing.
So I'm Marcia McKenzie. I'm a faculty member in the College of Education, and I direct the Sustainability Education Research Institute where we are.
So I'm Susan Shantz in Art and Art History, and I teach here in the sculpture area primarily.
I'm Monica Popa from Edwards School of Business. I'm teaching marketing.
I'm Toddi Steelman. I'm the Executive Director and Professor in the School of Environment and Sustainability.
I would define sustainability as a state where people are healthy, where environments are healthy, and where people's relationships with each other and with the environment are just.
I get really concerned when I see it being separated out and people talk about social sustainability or financial or in a kind of separated way. I think it's really can be problematic in that you then just sort of do business as usual.
Because I'm a sociologist, I would say getting appropriate relationships between people and the rest of nature. What people do with each other ends up being very, very important to how our relationships with the rest of the planet unfold. I often tell my students that I really like the indigenous concept of all my relations too. And one way environmental sociology is defined sometimes as the study of community in its largest sense, in its broadest sense.
I'm not sure how much it applies to my discipline. Usually I think of it having to do with not creating garbage, or kind of living responsibly with utilities and things like that. And because I teach in sculpture, which is materially based, I often feel like we end up with a fair bit of garbage, maybe, compared to other disciplines. I'll also say a lot of students like to use found materials. I've always used those in my own work. And sometimes artwork will just have this immediate impact, right, that you just get it as one take, as opposed to reading a 5-page article or something about it, or even a short article. It's a different kind of impact that's very immediate.
So sustainability in healthcare, it's a lot about the longevity, the connection to things. So how do we actually keep things moving forward to make sure that what we have in the future is not compromised by what we're doing in the present or what we've done in the past. In the institution, how do we actually make sure that the hospitals operate from a sustainable perspective? So there's a lot of things that we can actually improve on so that we have like a healthy healthcare system, which we don't currently have.
Sustainability, I think, is a core concept within my research, although it never is stated as such. My research would go into financial decision making. How can we help people spend their money? And particularly how to help people who are at the point of just below poverty or on the poverty line sustain their life, including with their own efforts as well as allowing the infrastructure around them to be more encouraging and helping their well-being. If you can create that social infrastructure almost without intending so, you will have people who will care about their environment.
I'm interested in social and organizational and institutional innovations that make it easier for us to design sustainability into everything we do. So that's why I study cooperatives. It's not just cooperatives, but we need new arrangements for sharing the burdens and the benefits of sustainable practices on the planet.
nurses are often thought of as being in the hospital, but we're actually have a much broader scope. So how do we work with communities to keep them as healthy as possible? So my research right now is on urban agriculture. So I'm helping with the Food Council to develop an urban agriculture action plan.
Well, I'm an anthropologist, an ethnographer, I guess. You could just say a storyteller. The core of what I do in my own research is I work in coastal communities and try to figure out what makes communities and regions sustainable or not.
We do research around environment, land, place, sustainability. We've looked at how sustainability has been taken up in policy across the country, both at K-12 and post-secondary levels. We've run the Digital Media Project out of here, which is working with Indigenous, settler, and newcomer youth around their orientations to place and sustainability.
Certainly law has shaped how we interact with the natural world. Thinking not just about what law means between relations with people, but whether a law is a good law based on what it actually does to the natural world, I think is something, again, we should be exploring more and more.
What are the factors that determine the extent to which either individuals or organizations are acting in a socially responsible manner? And how can we sort of set up the conditions to encourage that kind of behavior? How can we illustrate that it is good business practice, if that's the language that we need to use to make that case? And that makes a lot of sense for companies. How can we ensure good practices in relation to the community, in relation to the environment? But there's really still a lot of room to study people's attitudes and behaviors towards these types of concepts, as well as things like attitude or behavioral change.
For example, what could we do in stores to promote choices that are more sustainable? But people have become accustomed to that idea of, oh, I'm paying, so I'm going to buy only what looks the best, without thinking of what impact that might have on our environment.
If you're open to those views and you can incorporate them into your own thinking and research or whatever, teaching, I think it's a more complete picture.
And so I think what I would like to ask people is, if you're a natural scientist, think about the human communities that are organizing this space, impinging on it, We live in a world of flows. Nothing is purely local and nothing is purely global. So it's really a challenge to think about.
And it often means working in a very problem-oriented way. It's much easier for me and my other colleagues from other disciplines to think about sustainability if we are all focused on a real-world problem.